Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast, where we connect, engage, and empower fathers to be the best dads they can be for their families and communities. And now, your hosts are Bruce Stapleton and Pastor Eli Williams.
Well, welcome, hello, Fathering Strong podcast. This is Bruce Stapleton. I'm a father, grandfather, and owner of the Movementum Group.
I'm Eli Williams. I'm also a father. I'm a husband, grandfather, author of the book Father Love, and I help to pastor New Hope Church currently and for the past 35 years, leading Urban Light Ministries, a nonprofit that powers Fathering Strong. Welcome, everybody.
Well, welcome. Well, Eli, over the last 4 weeks, we've been discussing POPs, protectors, order keepers, providers, stabilizers. Last week, we talked about stabilizers. But, we were looking at, what are the needs of fathers, and for some, as we talked about the last couple of weeks, life's not been kind. Many of those men have lived troubled and very stressful lives, and then they take those responsibilities over to fatherhood, and that's added to the mix. It just complicates things and makes life even harder for them. So this week we are excited to bring on a new guest. We bring on James McDonald. Mr. McDonald has led a 49-year career in providing mental health services to Zanesville area residents and served since 2013 as the president and chief executive officer of All Well Behavioral Health. James is one of the founders of Forever Dads, whose mission is to encourage, educate, and equip men as fathers to develop positive relationships with their children, families, and communities. And James McDonald is also the founding member of the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families. And he earned his Muskegon Bachelor's of Art degree in psychology and a Master's of Arts degree in public administration from Ohio University. So James, welcome. And Eli, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can get us started.
Yeah, I am excited to have you, James. You are our first guest on our podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been Bruce and me up until now, and it's great to have someone of your stature on, and we've been looking forward to it. Now, in addition to the great work that Bruce just acknowledged in your introduction there, you're also a husband and father. We probably should have said that first, right?
Yeah.
So Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be on this podcast with you, Eli. I have great respect for you, love for you and your family, and we have been friends for a long time. And there is not much more in life of value than strong friendships and relationships. So I love you and I appreciate our friendship. My life started on June 16th, 1951, and I was born the 8th child of Frank and Ruth McDonald. And I always acknowledge them. They lived to be 96 and 93 years old. They were married for 69 years. And again, as I said, had 10 children. And I'm number 8. We didn't have a lot of stuff, but all 10 children are college graduates. And I grew up in a house of faith, and I just always honor mom and dad for I am who I am because of them. They not only brought me into the world, but they introduced me to life and to God and to people and interactions with things. So it's really, to me, this whole work is about legacy and transferring from one generation to the next. So that's my immediate family in terms of my family of origin. And then I got married when I was old. I was 35 when I married Lisa. I always saw myself as a married guy. I always, guys when I was young in high school were talking about a bachelor's pad and all that jazz, and I thought, I'm gonna be a husband and a father. And it took me 35 years to get a lady to say yes. but she did, and now we have two children, Sarah and Michael. Sarah is 36 years old now, and is married to an attorney in Cleveland. And I have one grandson, Jordan, who is 16, and my son Michael is 34 years old, and he lives in Tacoma, Washington. For the last 13 years, he's been a Armed Forces Green Beret and managing his life. But that's my family, source of my joy, great source of my joy.
Absolutely. Wow, what a great story.
Yeah,
Great story. You come from good upbringing. I had the privilege of having met your father. Didn't get to know him real well, but
yeah,
I did get to know him a little bit, and I can see you in him.
yeah.
And I'm sure everybody who knows the two of you would say that. So, from your perspective as a father, and as someone who works with fathers, and as someone with a background in mental health, and you can talk about that as much as you'd like. But my first question to start off with has to do with something that I talked about in this week's weekly blog post, the Fathering Strong blog post. And I talked about this notion of so many fathers being called deadbeat, when in fact, many of them are really not deadbeat. They're beaten down. They're beat down dads. Because life has beat them up. Bad choices for sure, and those kinds of things. Many of them start with disadvantages, and sometimes they are mental and emotional kinds of problems that they have to start with. And now you add being a father on top of that and the stress that comes with it. So my question for you is, what might the mental and emotional stress on a struggling father do to his health?
So that's a great question. Fathering is stressful for a healthy person.
Yes.
Relationships with a woman in a marriage, or whatever the relationship might be with the mother, is even more challenging than fathering in terms of sustaining that. So there are natural forces that impact connectivity in the human space, because we're just inclined towards selfishness, and we're inclined towards seeking pleasure, and we're inclined to be protective or defensive, and none of those bode well for connectivity, as we are social animals and we get our needs met by connecting with others. One of the things that I zeroed in on as a father is helping my children with relationships and connecting with other people, because to the degree that they could do that well would really enhance their success in whatever they did, because we need each other. I mean, we can't live. We're not independent in terms of the nature of people. I mean, I don't know how to make a car. I couldn't even get this computer navigated without calling my IT guy. So connectivity is really difficult. And I think that the imprinting or the modeling of connection has to be modeled. It isn't natural. It doesn't come with us. It's like in the animal kingdom, you see, whether it's a deer or another animal doing things, and then the little child does what they see somebody else doing. and they end up being an independent adult once that stuff is imprinted and once they get that. If you don't have that, Eli, you're lost. You really struggle in terms of how to make decisions and choices, how to interact with other people, and so a lot of people are floundering because they didn't have a model, or they grew up in trauma or saw dysfunction. So it's not a fault. It's just birthed out of not having the kind of environment that spawns growth and success in terms of self-regulation and connecting with other people. So it's really why I've started Forever Dads, because I worked in mental health for a while, and when we first started, on the onset of this business, we would see people with mental illness, Eli, who were in their 30s and 40s, and then a few years later in their 20s, a few years later in their teens, and now we're medicating kids who are 5, 6 years old. And I asked myself, what is that? What's the reason that the psychological pain is happening at younger ages? And determined that father absence was one of those reasons. So these children who don't have a father and didn't have a father end up being lost as adults. But they do have libido. You know, they do have sexual drive. They do have the desire to connect. So we'll do that. Out of that will come a child and some desire to be a good parent. You know, when I went to Genesis, I asked them how many of the fathers are at the births of these children, and they told me 9 out of 10 times there's a male at the hospital at the birth of their child. But very shortly after that, they're gone, because they do want to be a dad and want to be connected, but they really don't know how. And the expectation is that you have a house, that you have you pony up, you know, and they just don't know how to do that. So often they leave, not because they don't want to leave, but they don't have the capacity to father as the expectation is for the mother of the child and some other folks that surround the child.
Yeah. So that is stressful. There you've got a child, and
Right.
you really don't know how to be a dad.
Right.
You know, you didn't know how to be a mate to begin with, and now you don't know how to be a dad either.
Right. Right.
Can all that stress sometimes drive a guy, if he's not already using substances, drive him to substances to ease their pain, to kind of medicate themselves because of all of the stresses of life on him?
Absolutely. Particularly if you have that stress, and some of that is anger, and some of that is depression, and some of that is anxiety, and some of that is shame, and some of that is guilt, and some of that is fear, and some of that is confusion. It's just a compound combination of emotion that can be overwhelming, and you have an expectation. You need to get up and go to work or do whatever you do with all of that going on in your brain. And what people have discovered is, to your language, they can self-medicate. People have discovered when they drink, that mollifies the pain. It creates other kinds of issues, but it mollifies the psychological pain at the time. When they use substances, it mollifies the pain. And then, because of the nature of our bodies and the design, addiction kicks in. And so now you are using the substance because your body is calling for it. And if you don't use it, you not only have these other psychological, emotional things going on, you have a physiological kind of a disruption in your system that, if you don't use, is going to be intolerable. So it's that combination that ends up. And then what will happen with people who are watching you, they believe that it's a choice, that addiction is a choice, that you're just deciding to drink or to use for pleasure. or to get your rocks off, rather than to understanding that the psychological and the emotional underpinnings of addiction. So yeah, absolutely, it's the reason that people use substances in many cases.
And then you have all that going on, and now you've got a child support obligation
Right,
on
right,
top
right.
of all that.
Right. So
And if you-
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and if you've lost your job because of your addiction, now you're in a world of hurt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because now you hide. You're elusive. You can't enter the door. You are and so it's a catch-22, because we need people to succeed, connection with people to succeed, and healthy people to succeed, but you can't do that because there's an expectation of those people for money or for something that you can't deliver, and so you're isolated. And let me get on a soapbox. Can I, just for 3 minutes?
The soapbox is yours, sir. Go ahead.
There is a good guy in here, and there's a bad guy in here. There is a guy with the capacity to do really good things. There's a guy in here with the capacity to do really bad things. And so which one of those guys is going to dominate? And that's a battle, Eli, that I have every day. Every day. Those two forces are always competing in my life. I have discovered this, and there are other ways that people deal with that good guy, bad guy in themselves. But what my parents introduced me to was church. And there are 3 or 4 or 5, maybe even more things that church gave me an advantage in managing these two people.
Yeah.
One is that I would go to church and I would hear, with all the flaws in church, this is not necessarily trying to put this on anybody, but there was always a sermon with a guy who is appealing to that good guy. All right, and so I'm listening to that guy speak and reinforce that side of me that wants to do the right thing. So and hearing that in regular intervals is a motivation to do that. Okay? The second reason is accountability. There's accountability that I discovered, and people discover accountability in a variety of forces, at work, at AA, at various groups. The way church gave that to me, Eli, was I teach Sunday school, right? So I teach these 7th grade kids about stuff. I discovered this. Whenever I mess up on Saturday or in the week or do something to that wrong guy, it really impacts my connection with these kids. I feel hypocritical. I feel some shame. It weakens my prayer. So church gave me an accountability that I have to be around people who are going to really give me a sense of doing the right thing, because I'm accountable to these kids and I don't want to give them a double message, because I'm really trying to build them up and not give them fake. Okay, so yeah. It's just an opportunity for accountability in that environment that helps me with this good, still battle every day with this guy, but it's a help for that. Another thing is just the encouragement from other people who are going through the same thing as I am going. And maybe they have an addiction or they had something, and they are telling me in that environment what they did, how they coped, how they managed with their financial stress. When they had a marital thing, did the good guy or that bad guy come out? Were they violent? Were they hostile? What'd they do with that thing? And people, and we call it testimony, but when they're given that kind of testimonial, it is reinforcing that good guy kind of an image. The final one.
Before you go with that, I'm going to use that as a teaser. Hang on to that one. We're going to take a break.
All right.
When we come back, you give us that last one.
All right.
You probably saved the best for last.
All right, yeah.
And any other ways in which a father can find help for his struggles.
Yeah.
This is the Fathering Strong podcast. We'll be right back after this.
We dads and father figures need each other. We need a safe, non-judgmental place to share our stories, challenges, heartaches, and joys. Fathering Strong is just such a place. A new online community of connected, engaged, and empowered fathers. Learn more at www.fatheringstrong.com.
Welcome back. I'm Eli Williams, and my guest today is Mr. James McDonald. He's just full of good information about parenting and mental health and just being a dad and dealing with the many troubles of life that some dads face every single day of their existence. James, thanks so much for being with us here today. And you were on a roll. You were sharing with us from your soapbox things that you have discovered that has really helped you, and that included your the resource for you, which is your church and your involvement in church and fellowship and teaching and all of that. And I stopped you from the third thing that you were going to share. Go ahead.
So the third thing is just whether I am looking inward or outward in terms of my focus, and how other oriented am I? What am I looking at as I look at other people and their needs and what they want? I am less centered on self. The more I center on self, the more I center on that bad guy or that guy who's going to do things to sabotage my goals. So it allowed me to give. It allowed me to give support to other people. It allowed me to care about other people, think about the impact of my choices on others. That really helped me as a husband, as a father, that my behavior has consequences that could harm the people that I love or that I want to have a sustained relationship with. So as I became over-focused on what they could do for me or should do for me, it helped me think about what they need and how I can accommodate them, and in turn, they give me what I need from that relationship. So that was critical in terms of a church environment, family environment, fellowship environment, thinking about others and how what they need from me. And very seldom when you think that way are you thinking about harming them or hurting them. You're really thinking about helping them, and that's critical. The final thing was just gratitude. When I go to church, it's just gratitude. We call it praise, worship. Those kind of experiences are just, I can always focus on the negative or focus on things I didn't want or like, but I really am thankful that I'm alive. I'm thankful that I can see, I'm looking at this thing at you now, and I'm looking at your face. I can see colors. I can move my head. I can walk. I can drive. So gratitude about the things, the simple things in life that give me peace, that give me joy, that give me rest. And you can get over-focused on negativism, but gratitude is something I learned in that environment. So church is not obviously exclusive environment. People get that in sports. They get it in again, AA. They get it at work. But connecting with people in a way where there's some accountability, where there are people helping each other and speaking into each other's lives, positivity, um, and accountability, that's really critical for men, because we go off the rails with things that we enjoy that feel good to us.
Yeah, that's good. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, a guy who is not a church person,
Yeah.
they didn't grow up in church, or for
Yeah.
whatever reason they don't attend, they aren't affiliated,
Mhm.
and they realize that they're having some struggles.
Yeah.
What are some things out in the community? What are some resources? And let's be honest, many of us men have a hard time reaching out for help because
We don't need
after all,
help. Right. We
I'm a
don't need.
man. Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah. I'm a man. I don't need any help.
Right. Right.
So,
Well,
so what's out there?
all right. Let me say two things, Eli, about it. The first is in the sense of human development, anthropology, we get this, I don't need any help, naturally. And so let me couch it this way. The most debilitating, this is not 100% true, but it's generally true. The most debilitating emotion for women is anxiety. The most debilitating emotion for men is shame. So in the development of our lives, this is where that comes from. Women are mothers often, and before they're mothers, they're expecting. They're pregnant 9 months before the child comes. So they are thinking about that and anticipating that early on. Where is my child going to live? Are they going to have a place to live? Are they going to have any diapers? What's the support system? Is the child going to be healthy? They're anticipating things. So anxiety is a futuristic emotion. It's an emotion that says, oh my God, something could go wrong. Okay? So in the 9 months of that, there's that anxiety and want the reassurance that things will be okay. For a guy, because guys, at least historically, were bigger, stronger, they were, in the early days, the hunters and the fighters and the defenders. So you didn't know when you're going around the corner whether you're going to face a tiger or a bear or what you might face, but you had to do it with strength. And you couldn't be vulnerable. So men can't show vulnerability and what we perceive as weakness, because we have to fight and kill and hunt and protect. So here's the way that plays itself out in a doctor's office. A woman goes to the doctor's office. The doctor says, why are you here? What's wrong? And the lady will, for 5 minutes, say, I'm having hot flashes, I can't sleep, I got this and that, and just go on and describe what's going on, because they have anxiety about what this is and want a solution, right? So they will describe what's up and try to get help with it. Men, you go to the doctor's office, the doctor says, what's wrong? I'm all right. She sent me. All right. So you get this. I can't be vulnerable. I can't. So if you put a sign up, help. If you need help, walk in here. Men aren't going in there. Not typically. Okay. So you, as providers and as fatherhood practitioners, we have to structure the services we provide in a manner that men can walk in that door and not feel shame, because it's going to kill they'll drive up and drive away. That needs to be understood as we prepare programming for fathers and men, what the barriers are. It's not that they don't want help or don't want to change or do something different, but you're tapping into something that is innate in male. Okay? So having said that, the second part of your question related to what can men do. I am CEO of All Well Behavioral Health Services, which is a comprehensive mental health program that serves 6 counties in rural Ohio. And we have 25 programs, ways we help people, from counseling to medication to case management to housing to jobs, just a variety of ways that we serve people. Primary care. So the way that we try to structure this, the way I tried to structure this for men is through a program I founded called Forever Dads. And the reason is there's a stigma in mental illness, period, for anybody. It's across the street from my office is Orthopedic Associates. It is easier for a person to walk over to that office to get a bone set or a fracture than it is to walk in my office, because they're going to have to tell a story that they've been abused or they've been whatever their story is. And that's there's a stigma about mental illness. I thought of this, Eli, just the other day. Use this example. If my daughter was in an auto accident in Cleveland, where she lives, I heard about that. She's in the hospital. I would come to my work the next day and tell people that my daughter's in an accident. She's in critical condition, and I would just get a lot of empathy, and people would just support me. I'm praying for you. What can I do? Can I give you a meal and all that? And they would support that. If my daughter was admitted to the hospital after a suicide act, trying to hang herself, my conversation in my office would be difficult. It'd be more private. It'd be a more challenging conversation. And I'm in the business, okay? So the stigma still exists in the world about psychological pain and how that shows weakness and vulnerability and fault and all that. That exists. So what we created is Forever Dads, which is a program for men that has them walking through the door. And if you want men to come into the door, you have to honor them. You have to honor them. And that's where we start.
Excellent. We'll talk more about that, what some of the other barriers are to men getting the help they need, and the many resources out there that can help a father who is willing to admit that he could use a little assistance. This is Fathering Strong. I'm Eli Williams. My guest today is James McDonald. We'll continue our discussion after this break.
Do you know a new father who could benefit from a basic introduction to healthy fathering principles? Pops 101, a free online course consisting of 4 one-hour sessions in English or Spanish, could be perfect for him. Pops 101 lays out practical steps toward becoming the protector, order keeper, provider, and stabilizer his child needs. Learn more at urbanlight.org.
Welcome back, friends. Eli Williams. This is the Fathering Strong podcast. James McDonald is my guest today, and he has been sharing some very sage wisdom about fatherhood and some of the reasons why sometimes fathers that really could use some help don't often get it, and it has to do with the way we're wired as men, it sounds, James.
Right.
We're just prone to not wanting to admit
Right.
that we need help, and that in itself is a barrier to men getting the help they need.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It is. I don't want to say you disguise it, but you have to create a pathway that men can enter. So there are various environments that are natural environments for men, and sports are one of them. Okay, guys are connected with. They either like playing sports or observing sport activities. So if somebody in that arena creates a half an hour, a 20-minute talking rap life time huddle. Call it a huddle, a fatherhood huddle, and just starts the conversation about fathering. That could even be started, and I would start it like this. I would start the story with my grandson who pitches baseball, and that he struck out 14 people, and because I'm honoring and I'm celebrating and I'm putting energy into something, you know. And what happened when a guy got a hit on him and he lost the game, this is how I felt, and this is what he did, you know. And I wonder what you all do in that. How do you deal with that? Help me. And again, it's a help me, okay? Help me deal with the frustration of my wife who does X, Y, or Z, whatever that is, you know. Financially, you know, here is the truth about my situation. You all see me. I got a nice car. I got a nice, I live in a nice place, but I'm struggling financially. Now, when I put that out there as somebody that is a peer or that they respect, it opens the door for just a little vulnerability, and somebody will say something that's helpful that a guy who says nothing the whole time can go home and use. Okay, so it is creating those kind of pathways for men to talk with men about stuff, and somebody intentionally initiating that conversation that would usually be about women, beer, sports, you know, something. But let's have a huddle about fatherhood. Today's topic, we're talking about X. So that's an example of how you can get men to engage. That is not walking through a door that would be hard. You'll get some men to walk through that door, but often it's late. Often it's when the divorce papers have been filed. Often it's when the guy is in court for domestic violence and is required to go to court. Often it's when a guy is in child support arrears and is forced to see you, and that's not his natural path for support. So if we can work within those natural environments, that will be a better way to engage men, if that makes sense, Eli.
It makes all the sense in the world. And in fact, you are describing our vision for the Fathering Strong app, which is really designed for to be a doorway for men to be able to make connections with other men, to have these groups in which they can talk freely and privately with each other about the challenges of fatherhood. So listening friends, if you want to know more about that, we won't take a bunch of time now, but I will refer you to our website, fatheringstrong.com, where you can learn about the Fathering Strong app and how you can download it and begin forming community for yourself and provide you with other men who can counsel with you, who can share with you, that you can share with them, and perhaps find some important help that you really, really need. Yeah. So, James, final question for you. We've got a tremendous resource in our state, the state of Ohio. Those of you who are outside of the state may not know about this. In fact, lots of people within the state don't even know about the Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families. Yeah. You are one of the founding members. Could you talk for just a minute or two about what that is and how it is also a resource for fathers and those that work with fathers to help strengthen the institution?
Yeah. So back in 2003, a group of people got together after we had gone to a fathering conference and said, how can we sustain or create an avenue for practitioners, for people who were working with families and fathers to strengthen the skill set that their approaches to that work. What we discovered is most organizations say they are family organizations, and when we walk into them, their clientele is women and children. So they are not serving the fathers. So we wanted to create a category, father practitioner category. So we developed trainings. We searched the country for various models of father connectivity. A lot of people may not know these names, but there's a Nurturing Fathers curriculum. There's an On My Shoulders curriculum. There's a Bringing Baby Home curriculum. John Gotti discovered this, Eli. Marital satisfaction drops 40% at the birth of the first child. Now listen to that. Marital satisfaction drops 40% with the birth of the first child. Now, the birth of the first child is an exciting time. You're excited about that. You can be a parent. But when you get home, it's a different story. The relationship changes. The mother's attention goes to the child, and it changes the dynamic to the family. It's not play anymore. It's now working together, and so there are products for that. So we found programs in the pain point of families, those places where divorce happens or violence happens, and we created tools that we can present to families and fatherhood practitioners to help fathers and families manage in their homes. So there's a group. Eli is now on the board of directors of that group, and we have connection in the major cities. And Ohio Practitioners Network for Fathers and Families. Great organization, not well known, but we are getting ready Eli, to have a strategic plan to see how we can be a better and a more stronger and strategic force in Ohio and to help families and practitioners.
Well, thanks for sharing about that, and thanks for being on as our guest today. You really are a veritable fount of information, and we'll look forward to having you back on the Fathering Strong podcast at some time in the future. We'd really appreciate that. So thanks, James.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And that wraps up today's podcast episode. There's much more on this topic, on the impact of fathers and the resources out there to help them be the best dads they can be. Check it out at www.urbanlight.org. That's our main website, urbanlight.org. And of course, check out Fathering Strong for lots of devotionals, videos, fatherhood courses, much, much more, including the archives for our weekly blog post and our YouTube videos of the Fathering Strong podcast. All of it at fatheringstrong.com. Next week on the Fathering Strong podcast, we're going to welcome Josh Taylor. Josh will share with us stories of his journey while sharing parenting of young daughters. Join us then. If you're facing dad difficulties, I want to encourage you to reach out for help. Also, reach out to the Heavenly Father for guidance. The Word of God tells us in Proverbs 3:5-8, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. May the Lord bless you as you give your child what no one else on earth can, your fully developed father love. That's Fathering Strong.
Fathering Strong is powered by Urban Light Ministries, a not-for-profit organization serving the needs of families and children for nearly 30 years. Your support helps us continue turning the hearts of fathers to their children while meeting some of the immediate critical needs of struggling families with small children. Contributions of all sizes are welcomed at www.urbanlight.org.